Sports World Digital Outreach. I'm glad you guys are here. Today, we are joined by former professional athlete Rushia Brown, who will be answering some of your questions. Um, so excited to hear from you guys and so excited to answer those questions. So excited to have you, Rushia.
Hey there, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you, thank you.
That's good. So why don't we start with just a, summary of your, you know, career and then some of your testimony would be good.
Okay, well, I started playing basketball. I didn't pick up a ball until I was in the 10th grade in high school, and I fell in love with it instantly. I think um, my ability to learn, work hard, and then see the results really motivated me because I knew I was in control of something. I was coming from a space where I didn't have, you know, a solid foundation in sport, but I learned that once you start working, you can get better. So I became obsessed. It became the thing that I did morning, noon, and night. I had scholarship opportunities to go to schools all across the nation, and I chose to stay close to home. I went to Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina, where I had an incredible career, and I was just really excited about getting a degree and going off to going to get a job. I wanted to be a social worker, work with kids, and at the end of my senior year, my coach called me in the office and she was like, Rusha, I got a call from these people in Spain and they're interested in having you come over to play. And so I accepted the phone call, listened to what they had to say because the WNBA was not in existence yet. So the majority of the women went overseas to play. And I was just excited about that opportunity. And I was like, look, they pay for a house for you, they give you a car, and they give you multiple tickets for your family to come over, and there's a salary. Like, what else could I ask for? And I accepted that offer, and I ended up playing professionally overseas for 10 seasons. And in the midst, the WNBA started right after my third season. So I was super excited because this was a chance for me to have to play at home, to be in front of my family and friends. Because as I mentioned, I had extra tickets, and my mom and my brother and my sister would come over and visit. But my family and my friends weren't able to come over. So I finally got a chance to, have a goal to play in front of them. And so I wanted to be a part of that league. And it was just really a crazy journey because I wasn't drafted, I wasn't invited to free agency camp. And the time that I had an opportunity to make a team was because I went to Charlotte and I tried out. So in the first year of the WNBA, what they did was allow for each of the franchises to have open tryouts. They were trying to, market it well and have people be really excited about the start of the WNBA. So I drove from Atlanta, where I was living in the off season, and tried out for a team in Charlotte, North Carolina, for the Charlotte Stings. Walked into the arena, 200 women trying out for two spots. And I was like, wow, this is bananas. But, I had a great tryout, I thought, but I made it down to the final four and I was cut. So I was heartbroken. And then after that, I go home to my mom and she's like, so what are you going to do? And I figured out that the following weekend, Cleveland was having tryouts as well. So I went there with my brother, tried out again, 200 people, but this time I made the practice team. And after 3.5 weeks of training camp, when the season got ready to start, our coach called me in the office and said, Rusha, you had a great training camp. I'm moving you up from the practice team to the regular roster, which I was extremely excited about. And I would be on the team, I would travel. And, I ended up playing 7 years in the WNBA. And I know that my journey was unlike anyone else's. So I was very excited to use my platform, as I still do, staying close to the game, understanding what it is and what it's done for me, and helping others understand too that so much could come from a life when you commit yourself to something. And then, as far as my testimony, I mentioned I didn't pick up a ball until the 10th grade. My father passed away when I was in the ninth grade, and I was heartbroken. And it was just so crazy because he was diagnosed with lung cancer. And when he was, I figured I would make a deal with God. So I said, God, like you're a healer. I've seen what the faith on my family side. I had one side of family that was Jehovah's Witnesses and another side that was Southern Baptist. But I did know that both were consistent in saying that, our Lord was a savior and healer. So what I looked for was, I thought I could cut a deal and help my dad get better. So I said, I'll read my Bible, I'll do good, I'll do good in school, just help my father to get better. So when my father passed away, I lost faith in everything. I lost faith in everything. So I started a spiral. I was hanging around kids that I wasn't supposed to be hanging around, not doing well in school, just making some really terrible decisions. And my best friend mom continued to tell me, Rusha, there's a plan for you. You got to make sure that you're doing things the right way, not living for yourself. And I just got tired of getting in trouble and just doing things the wrong way. And she kept telling me, God has a plan for you. God has a plan for you. You can't turn your back on God, even though you feel like He turned His back on you. So, being broken, I just took the time and I started back to read my Bible and tried to build a relationship, my own personal relationship with Christ. And that was one of the things that helped me. And then basketball was the thing that took me away from the negative people I was hanging around. So basketball ended up being the thing that saved me. But my relationship with Christ is the thing that propelled me like throughout my time.
Mm. Wow, what a story. It's yeah. Um, I'd just like to say, like, you've had a lot of blessings throughout your life, you know, as even some that, maybe weren't obvious at the time, you know, like, basketball being the thing that kind of kept you away from those people that you probably shouldn't have been hanging out with. Like that was a bit of a blessing in disguise, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it's funny because even when I started playing basketball and I thought, like I could do both, like still hang out with the people and play basketball, they would tell me, like, no, Rusha, you have an opportunity to do something better. You shouldn't be with this crowd. We don't want you to get in trouble because I came from an underserved community where the likelihood of people making it out was not very high. So it was funny because once I started playing, they saw something in me as well. So they tried to shield me from certain experiences, whereas before I was playing, I was just one of them. And so then once I started playing, they put me in a position to know to be supported and not put in certain situations. So it really was an incredible opportunity. Basketball really did a lot for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, would you say that God used basketball as like the vehicle to kind of like, I don't know, change your mindset as the way that you got to that point where you wanted to build that relationship with him, your own personal relationship?
I started to build my personal relationship because I was tired of doing wrong and just seeing the negative impact that it was having on my life and those around me. But once I started playing basketball, I saw how he blessed me in regards to my commitment to him and my commitment to the game. So it just seemed like every time I reached one level, he would open up another door, open up another window to help me understand that the way that I had seen myself prior was not the way that he saw me. So it was really about me understanding my worth and seeing myself the way God saw me and not the way the world saw me. And I just continued, like, it was amazing. It was a storybook for me because I never had those aspirations. So as all these things started to happen, I was just excited. It's blissful. And I just continued to grow and I learned that the things were synonymous. When I was doing things right, things were going up. When I wasn't quite focused and not doing things quite as right, like it would have a different impact. So I absolutely believe that, basketball has been a vehicle for my growth, my development, both spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. And I know that basketball is the thing that saved me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I like what you said there. You learn to see yourself the way God sees you and not how the world sees you. You got to know your true worth. Could you maybe expand on that? Maybe for some people who might question, what does that mean?
No, absolutely. As I mentioned, I came from an underserved community. So a young black girl living in like a not so good area, the expectation is that we were to get in trouble, that we weren't to make good decisions, that we weren't going to get our education, that we weren't going to have any successes. So, like I said, basketball was given to me, I believe, as a gift. And as opposed to me seeing myself as this child who would be pigeonholed and not given an opportunity to be successful in this world, I learned that the opportunity is there. If God has a plan for me, then there's nothing that I couldn't do. And that wasn't a mindset I had prior. So just understanding what that relationship was and allowing Him to lead and to guide me just really put me in a different position. And I think that's one of the things that I share with the young people that I talk to all the time is just understanding who you are and whose you are, because that gives you an opportunity to, excel and to do leaps and bounds, incredible things, because it's not about, just what you have, but what God has placed in you.
Yeah. I love that. I love the idea of the world seeing us as one thing and God seeing us as something totally different. Um, and most of the time, you know, that what the world sees you as can be distracting, um, good or bad. The
Mm-hmm.
world could just look at you and see you as a professional athlete, and that would be a understatement compared to what God sees you as.
It is. I do believe that, there's so many limiting factors, as you mentioned, whether they see you good or bad, we tend to take on that personality. And even as a professional athlete, I've learned because when I played sports, people always said, Rushia, the basketball player. Well, I've been retired for, ooh, wow, that long. A bunch of years. I won't say how many. I've been retired for a bunch of years. People say Rushia, the basketball player, and they don't take into account, I've started businesses. I've hosted, youth conferences. I've done stuff for my churches. I mean, there's so many other things, but it's their comfort level to see me as just a basketball player when God has opened so many doors and given me a platform to impact lives in so many other ways. So the thing that I've learned to do is just embrace that, because that's what they see me as. But when I walk through the door, I show them the light, and what love looks like, and what patience looks like, and what empathy looks like, and the heart of a Christian, and just how I love to impact the lives of others. So I let people live in their comfort zone, but I also use my gift, my God given gift, to impact their lives in return.
I love that. I love that. Just thinking like, oh, I'm not just me, you're not just Rusha, the basketball player, you show people that light. And I liked what you said. You show them what love looks like, you show them what empathy looks like, you show them what was it, compassion? Um,
Hmm.
you show them all of those things. And so like how do you go about showing somebody all those things?
I think it comes to being committed to what it looks like. So many times people see Christians as judgmental. And I try not to live in that space, because I understand that I too am imperfect. I've had my downfalls. I've had situations in which I've fallen short of my goals, and I'm sure the expectations of, those around me. But because I am always living in a space of welcoming people and having them understand that I'm not one to judge. Like, we are all children of God, children of Christ, and we just want to make sure that, I want you to be as comfortable as ever, because now that leads you to what that relationship should look like. If I cast, and I'm pointing my finger and I'm judging you, like, that'll run people off. So I try to be what I need, especially when I was an earlier Christian, like trying to be the person that embraces people, and tells them, how good life can be when you're at peace with who you are and whose you are.
Oh, I love that. I love what you said at the end there. When you're at peace with who you are and whose you are. That's awesome. I
Hmm.
also really liked, you know, you were just talking about, loving on these people and not being judgmental. And I think that that might be one of the biggest struggles um, that, people as Christians, like a lot of people, view the whole, like the entirety of everybody who follows Jesus as like this experience that they might have had with some of these people who are being very judgmental. And I see it a lot. And, you know, at this point, like, what would you like if somebody's here and they're like, "Oh, I'll check this out, but I hope they're not super judgmental." Like, what would you say to somebody who's only had experiences with those judgmental Christians, with those people that have been pointing the finger at them, you know?
I think it's really important for everybody to find their niche or find their support group that works for them. Like anybody, any church you go to, any church home, any religious organization that you may have an encounter with is going to be different. So you just have to really figure out your personal relationship first and then figure out where you can go to be fed. Because if you don't have the confidence in your personal relationship, it's going to be hard to be around other people because you feel insecure. You feel like, well, I'm not good enough because this person has been doing it, been a Christian for 10 years and this person for 25 years. And here I am, I don't even know the Bible. So we tend to compare ourselves to other people, but you want to just make sure that you find a space where people continue to encourage you in your walk and not judge you. So it is like it's trial and error. So you will maybe be exposed to some of those people, but don't let it discourage you. Because I know so many of us, and I laugh, I tell a joke, like people get up and go places where negative things have happened, but they'll keep going back. So you got to do the same thing with your church. You got to understand if you have a bad relationship, maybe that's the person, not the person that you want to speak about your walk with. You got to find somebody else. So it's really about just finding the right person that's going to nurture you and help you understand what it's supposed to look like for you because everybody's walk isn't the same.
Mm. I like how you put it. Find, get with your personal relationship first, focus on that, and then community can help you, grow in that and grow together, community wise too. Yeah, no, the reason I like when you said that, I just wanted to jump on it because like I've been seeing it so much lately. You know, I saw a TikTok the other day. Um, it was like a bunch of kids that one was an atheist, one was like a Jewish boy. Like there was a whole bunch of them, and they all said that what they had in common was being hated by Christians, and it had so many likes and comments and stuff, and it honestly just hurt me because I was like, I don't hate any of you, like, like I love y'all, like, it was crazy. I just, I felt so bad, and I like, I don't know if they had bad experiences or anything, but it really like it hurt.
I mean, I'm sure they had because, like, I shared, like, even I had bad experiences with Christians, but what better way to draw someone to you than to be what they need? Like these kids feel like they're hated, but they need to be embraced and shown what love and empathy looks like. And I'll mention because I told you half of my family is Jehovah's Witnesses, the other one is Southern Baptist, and just the experiences that I had with the Jehovah's Witness side. Like if you are not in that, then they can't really associate with you or talk to you. And I don't understand how, as a family member, you're not gonna talk to me. Like I don't understand what that looks like. How you can't support your child or whatever that is. So how is that love? How is that showing, someone to come to you? And there's just so many different experiences, but that's just my personal one. So I was thinking, well, I don't want to have that type of relationship with anybody. I don't want to be, where I'm cast out because I'm not doing what everybody else is doing. I need to figure out what love looks like for me. So it's always been about first my personal relationship and always being an example to other people that it's not about, the religion, but about the spirituality and the relationship that you have.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. You know, I'm I'm praying that, maybe one day, people will look at, Christianity as a whole and everybody will say, you know, oh, they are loving, like they are, they truly follow Jesus' example and love thy neighbor. And so I hope we get there.
I do
Um,
too.
and
Remember when
then
we had those
yeah,
bands, those WWJD bands, where they would say, "What would Jesus do?" Like,
yes,
how many times did we make a
yeah,
situation better just by really applying that? Because at no time did Jesus cast down, the people who were not like him, who were not his followers. Those are the ones that he worked even harder to bring in to the truth. So I don't understand how we as humans, who are each and every one of us, need not one of us is perfect. How do we find a way to judge other people because they sin differently than us? And we should all be working towards the same goal, even though your journey may be different than mine. Who am I to tell you, oh, nope, I saw you talking to that girl. You're not good enough. How can I do that? When I was just talking to a
I
guy. Like,
agree.
it might be something different, but we got to figure that out.
Yeah, I no, I totally agree. The What Would Jesus Do bands, I think they need to come back for sure.
And
That
not just the
that would
bands,
be
but the
great.
application, the application of what it means. Hmm.
Yes, yes. Yeah, no, and the craziest thing is like, I don't know what to do because, the Bible says Jesus sat with tax collectors and sinners, like he wasn't just hanging out with the disciples all the time, he was sitting with the broken and the people that no one else would go near and
Absolutely.
literally everybody. And to think that like some people feel like they've been you know hated on and judged um by the people that claim to follow him, like it sucks, it hurts. And I like, if anybody's watching and you felt that way, I just want to apologize and just want you to know that Jesus loves you and I do too, okay?
Great word, Ben. And the thing is, I've often just tried to analyze, like, why would somebody do that? So maybe they're insecure in their own walk. Maybe they're still broken and trying to figure it out. But like you just shared, like, we should all love one another despite what we're going through, because the only way we can bring them in is through that love and having people feel safe.
Mm, yeah. And then I think the other thing on the opposite side, right? Um, I hope God works in some people's hearts that have felt this way and leads them to a posture of forgiveness. I think forgiveness is the other huge thing in today's society that like we don't give and get a lot of nowadays. What do you think?
No, I absolutely agree. People are so easy to hold on to the negative that has taken place in their lives. And yes, you want to remember so that you can not do it again, but you can't hold on to it and then allow it to harden your heart. So I really do believe that there are things that we can learn. We're in a constant state of education and learning and just figuring things out. So we got to figure out how that negative can turn into a positive and how we can impact lives more efficiently and through love. Like, and I know I say love a lot, but I think it's really important because it means you're not judging. You're not, doing negative things to people. You're trying to do what's in their best interest as well as yours. You're being patient. You're trying to, help them along as opposed to, I've seen this a lot. Like I see it in a lot of churches, even judging because somebody has a tattoo. Okay, in my past life, I got a tattoo. So does that mean I can't love God? Like, what does that mean? So I just think it's just really important that we accept people how they are, because even our Lord said, like, come as you are. I want you exactly how you are, and we'll work with this. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. I I I I'm doing a series on Sports World's TikTok page on the Beatitudes, and I recently got to last week we covered "Blessed are the merciful," and so I talked about forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
and, and you know what? It made me realize like society today is like rarely forgiving, like at all. Um, it just seems like, I mean, just look at cancel culture on the internet, like it just seems like once you get canceled, there's no like you can't go back and get uncanceled, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like if you truly repent and you whatever you did wrong, like you're like I'm sorry, and you really mean it and your actions show that you do mean it. I feel like there should be an uncancel culture.
I agree, and I think a part of that is because people find more security in themselves if they can say, well, They know deep down inside they're not perfect, but I can point the finger at you because you're not perfect either. As opposed to us all just saying, okay, we're not perfect, let's move forward. There's no way I should dangle over your head a mistake that you made when you, like you said, have, repented, you said I'm sorry and you're working to do better. But here 6 months, a year later, I'm still talking about it. Like that's not even who you are anymore. But for some people that makes them feel better to castigate or to judge. And it's just as you're right, this world we live in right now, people will bring up something from years ago, and I've stated, any issues that I've had before have made me who I am today. So you can't, hurt my feelings by saying, Rusha, you did so and so. Yep, my bad. I've grown, I've learned, and now I'm doing better. So, and I think we have to get to a place too where we're not so impacted by the judgment of other people. Because once again, once you know who you are and whose you are, I'm not living for you anyway. It would be nice if you would get over it, like I've gotten over it. But if not, I don't answer to you. So we have to have that security in our personal relationship and knowing what our goals are and what's been placed in us essentially through Christ that leads us to do the right thing despite what other people say.
Yeah, I like that. I like to think about it, like Christ forgave me for it, Shouldn't you be able to forgive me too, Like the Bible says in Ephesians 4:32, forgive others just as Christ forgave you. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ God forgave you. Yeah, that's what it says.
But it's funny how we pick and choose which scriptures to actually practice. Like the ones where we want to judge people or we want to tell people what they should do and how they should be fearful if certain things don't happen. Those are the ones that we'll use. But the ones that tell us to be loving and kind and compassionate and forgiving, we let those slide out the window. So I think there definitely needs to be a reset button to make sure people are doing the right things on behalf of, the love that they say they have.
I agree. I agree. I think, yeah, and wow, some big topics coming up right in the beginning of of this conversation, and I love it. Like, it's great.
Hmm.
But I would also, like to encourage the audience that's listening, feel free to ask your questions. We'd love to get to those anytime, anytime. Like, feel free to interrupt us. We could ramble all day about stuff, but we would love to hear from you guys as well. Um, no, but going back to the idea of picking and choosing scripture, like it it's true, we're not allowed to do that, and the fact of the matter is that so many people decide what they want to listen to. It's like selective hearing almost, which
Hmm. Exactly.
is something a lot of people struggle with, including myself sometimes. I won't lie. I'm not saying about the Bible, but more specifically, like I literally have selective hearing sometimes. It's like, you know, oh, my wife told me to take out the trash, and I'm just like, what? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear it the first time. You know, it's 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 sad that we like how can we have selective hearing when it comes to God's word?
It's tough, but I do believe that sometimes we are looking at the things that are most comfortable for us in that moment. Like you're sitting down watching the game, maybe you don't want to get up right now and go take the trash out. Like I could hear God telling me to do something, but it might seem like an inconvenience to me in that moment. And as opposed to being obedient, I play like I don't hear it. Like we've all done it. So I really think it's just a matter of us getting to the point where the word that we hear and what he says gets to our heart all the time. And nobody's going to be perfect about it because we're all going to overlook something. But there's always a situation in which, in that moment, I just don't want to. So, how do we make sure that we're not just doing what we want to do, but what we should do?
Mm. I think that brings up another great question. You know, Actually, a few. How do you discern God's calling? When God tells you to do something, how do you discern when He's doing that? And how can we be better about acting on that?
It's funny because I know there are times when I'm so laser focused on doing something, and any voice I hear is going to say what I say. But that's when you have to make sure that you're sitting still, you're being still, you're getting in your word, you're listening to what God is saying, because it's so easy for us to put ourselves in a position where we're doing it and think for sure God said that. No, Rusha, that was you. You said that. Just sit down for a second, read, meditate, get in your word, and allow Him to speak to you, because sometimes my voice is overpowering.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with you talk a lot about having a personal relationship with God. And I think a lot of it has to do with knowing what your personal relationship is like. So that way you can be better at listening and doing the things that he asks you to do.
That definitely makes a huge difference, because if you haven't felt what it really feels like for Him to speak to you and to lead you and to guide you and for you to relinquish that control, you won't know what it's like. Like, you'll always think that your voice is His voice. So it really is a matter of building that relationship and doing things in a certain way and doing it consistently. Doing it consistently so you know what it looks like, you know what it feels like, you know what it sounds like, and you know when it's not Him, it's you.
Yeah. I think yeah, I think the one of the most important things is like if you do think that God is telling you to do something, I think one of the most important things is to go to scripture with that, you know.
Absolutely.
Um, any advice, on what to look for, how to listen.
It's primarily just dependent upon how you've developed your own relationship. For me, it mostly comes with reading and being quiet. Like, I have to find some time for myself when nobody's around. Like, I have an 8-year old daughter, and those times are limited. So mostly when she's asleep, but the time that I would have to find for myself. So I think you have to be consistent in doing it, because you have to build up that muscle that will remove yourself from the situation, allow you to remove yourself from the situation and be led. And once again, I talk too a
Mm,
lot about control and how we want to control everything and guide ourselves, when that's not necessarily how this is going to work. Granted, you know, you got to have faith, but you also have to do the work, but you got to know when. The timing is essential as well.
yeah, yeah. Wow. I think that's a really cool idea, I think a lot of people who might have had questions about that, just got a lot of answers. So let's jump back to your career. Um, so what was it like being one of those first WNBA players, one of those early pioneers of the WNBA?
It was definitely an honor to be a part of something that was being developed. And, David Stern had an incredible vision of what a women's professional league could look like, supported by the NBA teams. And, it started off with 8 teams with franchises in the cities of NBA teams, and they were owned by the NBA teams. And it has just developed over the years, where now you can have a team in a non NBA city like Connecticut. And just in those first years, there was so much hype around it, because the NBA was supporting the first professional team in the United States. And the ABL came along the same time, so the American Basketball League. But for the NBA to put their name and their stamp on something, and I was being a part of it, I was just ecstatic. And I remember how seeing the commercials on the TV, and all the players, and then going to the gyms, and you see, for example, in New York, Madison Square Garden is the mecca of basketball, and to go there and see all the superstars sitting courtside to come watch us play, like, it was a tremendous honor, and sometimes overwhelming, to see Denzel Washington and Penny Marshall and Jack Nicholson in LA, like, and Shaq and like all these people watching us play. It was incredible. So I was very honored to be a part of it, and to know that, this year is the 25th anniversary of the WNBA. So 25 years ago, we set out to be a part of something incredible, and nobody knew if it would last or how long it would last. And it's still going, and it's still growing. and the athletes are even more incredible now than they were, and the marketing is better, and like it's just a continual process, and I'm just excited to continue to still be a part of it.
Yeah. Um, Kind of a follow-up to that, you know, you you talked about all this, right? You got to see all these really cool people sitting in the stands coming to watch you play, all these
Hmm.
superstars. How did you stay humble throughout that?
For me, and I'm sure my answer would be different than everyone else, every day I went out to play, I think about the fact that I probably shouldn't have even been there. I told you about my journey and how I wasn't drafted. Like I wasn't invited to free agency. I pretty much slid through the cracks. Like I snuck in through the back door. So every day was me trying to prove that I belonged and that the platform that I'd be given, that I valued it. So granted, I worked really hard, but the humility and the love for the game is the thing that really kept me in a position where coaches valued me.
Yeah, because I can only imagine, sitting there and getting ready to play the game, and I see, you know, Shaq or Kobe or Nicholson or any of those people sitting there to watch me compete. Like I feel like I'm I'm probably not as strong as you. I probably would have gotten a big head in that moment and been like, yeah, you know. But that's awesome. That's great. Like stay strong and stay humble like that, and to like think, you know, back to my roots, back to the roots, back to the roots. Um, I think that's a very, strong thing to do.
And one of the things too that I think really allowed me to keep my head down and keep working is because the WNBA is the most elite league of all leagues. Because right now, well, when I was playing, they started out with 8 teams, 12 players. So that means out of all the women in the world, there were 96 women that made it to this level. So there were somebody knocking on your door every day. So you could get cut at any minute, and there's 10 people waiting to fill your spot. So there was no room for the big head. There was no room for, being arrogant or to just slack off. You had to work every day because there's somebody coming right for your spot. So that was one thing to keep you on your toes. And then just the level of appreciation for even being a part. Like I really was, I legitimately was just happy to be there. So I wanted to make sure that nobody was disappointed for giving me that chance.
I like that, just view it as a blessing, like a truly a gift from God to be able to compete
It
at that
was.
level and to have that platform. Um, and obviously you're using it and you've used it to, glorify him, and that's, I mean, something to be commended. When did you like consciously make the decision like I'm going to be intentional about using my platform to glorify God? Was it right off the bat or was it?
I've always lived my life a certain way, and I don't know that I was actually vocal, but people saw me live on purpose, if that makes any sense. I wasn't out there saying, y'all need to go to Bible study. Y'all better go to church. Rusha just went to Bible study, and Rusha went to church. Rusha, where you going? I got to go to sleep because I got to go to church in the morning. I'm getting ready to leave dinner because I'm going to Bible study. Like, so it really was a matter of doing it, leading by example. And then if they would see me reading, what you reading, letting them know. Say, hey, you want to, then I would offer, I would open it to them. But I was never the person that just kind of hounded people and said. And then when there was an opportunity, we, my one of my former teammates, Jenny Busick, who's now, and I love to brag on her, but we played together in Cleveland. But she's currently the only female coach. She coaches for Dallas, one of the few WNBA players that have made it to that next level. She and I started agape, which is our play on agape, but we started a Bible study group for the league where we would do, once a week we would have our Bible study, and girls could call in from overseas. We would have a call and just really share that time. So we just opened it up. They knew who we were, they knew what we were doing, and they were drawn to who we were. I keep saying it's not about what you say, but it's about that action. People watch what you do and not so much what you say. So it was just really important for us to walk the walk.
Yeah. I think that's really great to you know, first of all, I love the agape, the play on words there. That's fantastic. But
Mhm.
to be truly intentional about the way you live, so that it shows Christ, and that um, and it's a way to share without even saying anything really. It's you just show up, love on people, and follow God, and people are they'll eventually, hey, you know what are you doing? Like, what is this?
Absolutely. So once again, it's always about just being who a Christian should be and understanding that, like, I'm not perfect. I've made so many mistakes in my life, and I don't judge other people for making their mistakes. But I definitely would, welcome you to walk a certain journey so that you can do better and be better and have different experiences. So that's the one thing. And I think even in my post basketball career, just having an opportunity to share that level of compassion and empathy with other people really makes a difference. Like in the things that we've done, starting the Retired Players Association for the women to assist in their transition, it was because I saw somebody that was in need and trying to do what is Christ like, just providing an opportunity and resources and helping out, being a good Samaritan and doing what I could and using the relationships that I had. And the women see that. So my relationships continue to grow and they know who I am because I know whose I am. And it's just really important. And they trust that. They trust me to be consistent.
Yeah, I gotta put that on a t-shirt because you keep saying it and I love it every time you say it. They know who I am
Hmm.
because I know whose I am. Like that, someone needs to make a t-shirt with that on it because that's
I might
fantastic.
look
I
into
think that's
that. I
great.
might look into that.
Um,
I'll sell you one.
Perfect. I love it. It's great. Like I think
Mhm.
that, if more people really kept that in mind, um, who knows what the world could be, if we all knew and whose we are, and so that way we acted, like who we are, you know.
And it's
I
funny
think,
because
yeah.
imagine, I grew up in the South, and I know like I would go places and people would know my mom and my dad. So I had to act like a representative of my family, right? The same thing with your relation with Christ, your relationship with Christ. You got to act a certain way, act and behave what's representative of your father, your spiritual father. So it's pretty much the same mindset because your behavior is going to be different when people know who you are. So you want to make sure that you act accordingly.
Mm, yeah. My dad, so he was my high school wrestling coach. But he always had the same speech before every season, which was this fishbowl speech. And so it's a similar premise. Like we live in a fishbowl, all right? Everybody can see what you do, and it
Hmm.
was automatically like, all right, all wrestlers at this school are like this because that guy
Absolutely.
did that, you know? And to bring it back to our earlier conversation, you know, that's kind of what we're doing with this judgmental thing is like some Christians or people who call themselves Christians, followers of Christ, are are being hateful and judgmental, and they live in this fishbowl, and so people see that and they go automatically, all Christians must be like that. Everybody who follows Christ must be like
Absolutely.
that. And it's not true. And I feel like we're gonna just keep circling back to this because it's such a big like thing that's going on in society, and it kind of ties to everything right now. Um, it's I think like we should all recognize that we live in this fishbowl, and I mean, obviously we all make mistakes, and that can happen, and we're all sinners, like we all mess up, but try to be intentional about it, right?
Absolutely. And I think I don't know why we do it, but I do believe that, everything trickles down, like from leadership. Like we have to make sure that the heads of the churches are preaching this and telling people. I know, and I'll speak because I had a great church when I lived in Atlanta. I was at Berean Christian Church, and Pastor Lee used to always make jokes, and anybody that I brought to my church would be like, he is crazy, but he spoke the realest and tied it in with the scriptures. So he would talk. I remember like one day I didn't wake up in time. I had an event the night before, so I went to like a 12 o'clock service, and he was making jokes because some of the people probably were coming in from the club, but he didn't judge. He was like, "Come on in here, have a seat," like he just made fun, but it was in by embracing that. I know y'all were in the club last night. That's why y'all come to the young service, but I'm glad you're here. So like just really telling people like wherever you are in your walk, it's okay. It's okay, and then that opens the door for other people not to judge.
Yeah, I like that. I love it. Yeah, my the church I go to and serve at now has very like it's about the same. Like we have that late service. The pastor does make a few jokes here and there,
Hmm.
like you slept in, like all that stuff. But
Hmm.
like I think their mission statement is amazing. It's so that people far from God can experience new life in Jesus. And
That's
I
wonderful.
think that, if we really all live, so that people far from God can experience new life in Jesus, you know, like obviously the first part of that is so people far from God, you know, like there's a target audience here, you know,
Hmm.
there's a people that we want to reach and love on and care for.
But how can we do that if we're isolating them and telling them they are not good enough or that they've made too many mistakes? So it really is about, reaching out to them with a loving hand and a kind spirit, and inviting them to be comforted and knowing that there is not a place, it's a safe place, it's not a place of judgment.
I love that. I love it. Reaching out with love and kindness. That I think that, that pretty much sums up our whole conversation for tonight is just reach out with love and kindness.
It's so important. And I think a lot of times people get so wrapped up in the word and helping other people bring it in, and we want to force it down their throat. But they don't have to, embrace it. So we got to give it to them in a way that they want to. And it starts with, kindness for me. That, and I've said it 16 times, and I'm sure, maybe even more than that. But think about it. You get more bees with honey than with vinegar.
It's true. It's true. And you know what? I think that, we all need to just again bring back the what would Jesus do bands and the of course the idea behind it and what you're going to do with it, and just really live that out.
I'm for sure. Like that would really impact a lot of lives, especially in this time where people are so negative and afraid. And like there has to be a way for us to embrace one another and just do better by one another.
Yeah. Yeah. I and you know, I feel like, we keep coming back to it and you know, it's just going to be like the message of the night is, you know, we need to love on people to the point where they know that it's God in us. Like it's got to be Jesus. Like that's the only
Yes,
explanation for why
absolutely.
someone can love like this.
Hmm.
And so,
That's exactly.
give me an example of like how how you did that, like maybe to your teammates, how you show love like that.
I'll share an experience. I told you I started the Women's Professional Basketball Alumni Association, which is the retired players organization, and so everybody who has played this game knows that when they are having a problem and ready to transition, that they could reach out to me and I would help with resources and opportunities. And so I had a young lady reach out to me. She was living in LA, and like I didn't know her, but after a couple of conversations, I saw she was in a distressed situation. Depressed, suicidal, not knowing what to do next. But she was a brilliant young lady. She was a pretty good athlete, but she was a brilliant basketball mind. She was a Christian as well, but she didn't feel safe in her church sharing what she was going through. And me, a total stranger. I remember she called me. She was like, Rush, I know you don't know me, but so and so told me to call you, and I just wanted to talk to you about what I'm going through and what I need to do better. Within like 2 months, my mom and I were just talking about this the other day. 2 months of conversation. I invited her to Atlanta and told her she could stay with me for a little bit because she needed more that I could give her over the phone. So she came to Atlanta. We went to Bible study together. We went to church together. I exposed her to some different opportunities through the NBA. She ended up getting a coaching job at a junior college, and now she's coaching like NCAA men's basketball, like the only woman coach in NCAA men's basketball. And so it was really about not judging her. And I probably did a little too much because I know you're not supposed to actually let people come in your house all the time. I mean, but just being open to, I saw her heart and I saw who she was and that she wanted to do better and that, God just spoke to me and I was obedient. And so I had her in my home with my family and she has done incredibly well. But and even when she tells that story and I share it too, it's like because it's never about me. I know that God will bless me no matter what the situation is because I continue to try and bless others. And she is doing so well now. I'm just so happy and excited for her.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, that you were able to love on somebody like that, and really just kind of, it's almost like, if someone, falls, when you're hiking or something, the whole group comes back and, picks them up and like helps them,
Hmm.
dust off and all that stuff. Um, and then they keep going, or, they turn around or whatever they need to do. But like the point is that community, like I think community might be one of the biggest things that you need to have. Um, because you can develop a personal relationship, um, but in order to like really grow, and sometimes in order to, understand things differently, in order to, have something that can help you get back up if you fall, you have to have community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really important because so many times, like even if we fall short, I told how sometimes I hear my own voice. Like I have accountability partners that be like, nah, that's you. That's you, Risha. God didn't say that. Go back and listen and read and see how it is. But when you have people that are loving on you and empathetic to your situation, but still willing to be honest with you without being judgmental, that really helps you grow and develop.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. Um, yeah. Well, I think it's actually time for us to wrap up. But
Oh
we just
wow,
want to thank
that did
everybody
fast,
for
yeah.
coming out. It did. We talked about some, really interesting topics and some really, deep topics too. I loved it. I think it was a great conversation. But yeah, just thank everybody for coming out. Thank you, Rusha, for answering some questions, for, you know, really loving on people and showing people, who you are because of whose you are. Still love that. It needs to be on a t-shirt. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about anything you heard tonight, um, feel free to email us at mydecision@sportsworld.org. That could be any questions about what you heard tonight, or just questions about Jesus, in general. If you're dealing with something like depression, anxiety, something like that, we'd also like to invite you to text choice to 494949. There we can help you out and talk to you, and just kind of love on you there, you know. Yeah, thank you again, Rusha, for answering questions and having this awesome discussion with me. Um, yeah,
Thank you so much for having me, and you have a great week.
you too.